Well, welcome everyone. This is our last police committee meeting that I will be presiding over. Bittersweet. So welcome. I'm glad all of you could make it tonight. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we have Mr. Petesky's son here tonight, Joe. Yeah, met him before. Welcome. It's nice to have him. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from October 27th? Boy, that seems like a long time ago.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Old business? Anyone have anything? Well, I just want to say, because this is kind of old, but for 12 years, it has been an honor to work
Been that long?
with all of you. Yes, I was on this committee serving with John Loeffler. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. And it truly has been an honor what you all do and how you all come together, working with the villages. And thank you for consolidating when you did and keep it going. And but it has truly been a privilege. And I thank you all for your support.
How many different people did you serve with, John?
That's it.
John,
Just John.
you've been on forever.
Forever.
Well, for the committee.
Oh, yeah, for the future.
You'll see, I've got longer than you.
Well, I was on the original, but I got fired. for that.
Right. Well, see, and I rehired you. All right, is there any new business tonight? And Chief, you're gonna discuss the survey a little bit?
I did send it out.
Yeah.
I
okay,
can
any
discuss it.
comment? Okay,
I can kind of describe how that originated and how we, how we do that. So,
Okay.
I didn't really have any specific items to discuss
yeah,
unless
just
there's questions
if anyone
about
had
it.
any questions on it or anything, but that's done on an annual basis.
Yes.
Good. So if there isn't any new business, then we'll have your report, which is the most important.
Great, thank you. So, few items, the Chiefs Association, State Chiefs Association that I'm a member of. 2 weeks ago, we were in Albany and we were recommending some amendments to some new legislation. I just want to make sure that the police committee was aware of it because I was present. And if you recall, and I've described all these new legislative initiatives over some time, and so we were recommending a little bit of a change in this bail system that we've gone to, only because in New York we found that it's very much broken. So and we think that the legislation that came about was good legislation, but we're just recommending that it get tweaked a little bit. So in the interest of just clarifying that, we were recommending the actual complete removal of cash bail. But at the same time, giving the power back to our judges to do what we call a security assessment or a safety assessment on defendants. So cash bail would not be an issue. People wouldn't have to come up with X amount of dollars to make bail or not make bail based on whatever economic situation they find themselves in. But at the same time, our judges, all of our judges had the ability to do somewhat of a risk assessment on those individuals. And then based on that risk assessment, either lodge them if they are high risk to the community or just simply release on their own recognizance. So
How do you do risk assessment?
there's a series of questions that you ask, and based on the answers to those questions, you can determine if the person's a high risk or a low risk.
So all predetermined criteria that,
Right.
yeah. that judges-
It's done in a whole slew of other states other than New York. They missed that in the legislation. So, and what's happening now, is there are only certain offenses that our judges can actually set bail on. They're very finite. They're pretty much very serious offenses. And if we do get to a point where folks are arraigned without a risk assessment and without the ability of the judge to remand, they're just set free. So the rate of recidivism is increasing.
So my understanding is that they do have some kind, judges do have some kind of,
Limited,
okay,
Yeah.
to be,
it's really limited to
Okay.
very serious offenses that almost in
Right,
itself
but-
pose a risk.
Right.
You know, so.
So under normal bail, as it used to be in the state of New York, there was a risk assessment that took place even during the arraignment process. Determine whether, what are we talking about when we talk about risk? Is the person gonna come back to court when they're supposed to come back to court? That was risk number one. You know, is the offense so bad, or is the potential of the offense, that the case is so good that we should hold this person on bail? Or, you know, if allowing the person to go free, there is some kind of security issue or some kind of potential for further crime. That was the least emphasis given. I think what the chief is referring to is a risk assessment that would include all of those, but probably put more emphasis on the risk of recidivism or the risk of harming somebody else.
Right, correct.
And that would be the judgment, that would be the discretion of a judge to make a determination.
So someone gets arrested. They go before court or magistrate or something.
At some point, right?
Well, in order to get out on bail,
There's a,
see him at some point. Right?
right, the way the law is written right now,
What are the steps though?
the way the law is written, the steps are, somebody commits an offense.
Right.
The police hopefully will apprehend that individual.
Right.
And as of right now, unless it's a qualifying offense, we have to give them an appearance ticket and they just walk away.
Well,
And
they don't go to the judge.
no, not automatically.
It'd be like a speeding ticket, like you don't go to court for, you don't get arrested when you get a speeding ticket. They give you an appearance ticket, you have to appear in court on such and such a date, and that's what you would be getting for like a petty larceny, for instance, which is a misdemeanor crime. They would give you a appearance ticket, which is not, that's normal anyway. On a petty larceny, you would get an appearance ticket for the most part, unless you have bench warrants or things like that.
Yeah, warrant changes things.
Then that would change.
Before they change the law, domestic violence is a good example. So before they change the law, and we go to a lot of domestic cases, right? Unfortunately, it's just, and there's mandatory arrests for certain laws that are broken during a domestic incident. We would always arraign that person before a judge immediately. We no longer do that. Usually those people get an appearance ticket and they just walk away. And many times they're committing those offenses again and again and again and again. So we're just asking for some a little bit of change in our ability to actually arraign somebody and then have them held accountable for those offenses. It's very complex. I wouldn't be able to describe it to you in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Maybe with Tim's help, it would.
Chief, so at what point is this
Yeah,
legislation right now?
Well, our village judge, Jim Hughes, has to go downtown sometime.
That's
a whole different.
That's a whole
story.
different, yeah, that's called centralized arraignment. And that's a judge. That's actually a really good change in that we have a judge available to us it's a 3-hour period every single day of the week, including holidays, which is great. So if we do get a real serious offense, at least we have a judge available at centralized arraignment. And Judge Hughes, for instance, he has now the ability to arraign on any offense, even outside of his judicial jurisdiction. So that's a good process. But problem with that, though, is it's a 3-hour window. So you can imagine every single crime that's committed in Onondaga County goes to these judges in this 3-hour period. And they're almost always overbooked and overrun and just totally burdened, So that's just one thing. The other one was discovery. I remember I was talking about discovery. The law currently is that post arraignment, after somebody gets arraigned, the police department has 15 days to produce every single item that's listed upon discovery. And as Tim knows, it's basically everything associated with the case. And that's almost impossible for us to do, not just us, but any agency in New York State. 15 days is a very, very small amount of time to assemble every single piece of paper, video, property receipt, whatever the case may be. So we're asking that to be tweaked a little bit to limit that those discoverable materials to only what we consider relevant pieces of information, things like accusatory instruments, things like evidence, things that are have more weight in the relevancy of the case. And then raise the age, although we agree that raise the age was a good thing. We were one of only 2 states in the whole country that didn't increase the age for criminal culpability. But the problem with it is the way they wrote it in New York, unlike other states, is family court judges or a local criminal court judge sitting as a family court judge is unable to view the criminal history of the individual if they're underage. And unfortunately, what that has been, it's created what we call a perpetual offender situation, where a judge doesn't even have the ability, a family court judge or any judge under those circumstances does not have the ability to see what type of criminal conduct or behavior this 14, 15-year-old kid may have had in the past. Just doesn't seem to make sense because, judges have no idea of what the offense is. So that's another minor tweak. So just so you guys are aware of this, some recommendations that we made in this. And to answer your question, these are just recommendations that are going to go to the governor, and then the governor is going to maybe, if she considers, to send it to the legislator, and the legislator could make those changes. I'm not holding my breath, but at least we had somewhat of a voice in the process. Yeah. Right. One thing that came up, I sent an email to Tim, and something I'm going to consider after the first of the year, is the idea of mutual aid agreements with neighboring agencies. Right now, Manlius has a mutual aid agreement with the town of DeWitt Police Department, which is great because we border one another. We're cooperating agencies. So if they have something really heavy, they can pull resources from Manlius and vice versa. It was brought to my attention recently when I went to some training that it's really not a bad idea to have a pre-established mutual aid agreement with almost every agency that we may interact with. And a good example really is our drone program. So our drone program has been extremely successful. We fly all over the county. And it's a bit of a risk because, say, if I fly in Camillus or if I fly in Cicero, I don't really have an agreement with those organizations to fly. And it is built into the general municipal law right now. But there's some things in the general municipal law that makes it problematic. For instance, the only time that I can provide resources to an agency that I don't have an agreement with, it actually has to be approved by the town supervisor, which sometimes you can't do that in an emergency. Good example is when the city was burning down last summer and the city was screaming for police. We all sent our police, including Manlius, but without an actual mutual aid agreement with the city, we expose ourselves to a little bit of liability, So I'm going to be advocating to engage in a mutual aid agreement with not only DeWitt, but other agencies to include the city. And I've been talking with the sheriff's department about that too, because there's another possibility of the sheriff, doing something or having a greater role in that. But that's in early stages, but I figured I'd mention it. There's a new product that I found, and I got some pre-approval and we're bringing it to the town board, but as long as the committee is aware of it, it's called Cortico. And basically it's an officer wellness app. It's actually a first responder wellness app. It goes on your phone, and I was able to get a grant through PERMA to purchase the product. And I'll be introducing probably at the end of January, but just so you're aware, it's part of a recommendation that was made by the Committee on Officer Wellness. And essentially it's an app that goes on your phone that allows first responders to get counseling when they need it, if they have a bad call. It also includes things like recommendations for healthy diet, exercise, making sure they pay attention to their sleep patterns, other things that first responders typically involved in. So I think it's going to be a good product. I hope, with some grant funding, I'll bring it, we'll take a look at it, we'll take a nice review at it for a couple of years and see how that goes. But kind of excited about that because I think it's going to really benefit our officers.
It'll be interesting to get their feedback on it.
Right, yeah, it would be really interesting. So, yeah. The fire department's included in it too. It could be fire, EMS, any first responder. So it's kind of a neat thing. It comes out of a company out of California and they're very, very reputable. So unfortunately, the district attorney's office made a decision recently where they're getting out of the bad check game. And for the last, I don't know, maybe 10 years, if we were to receive a complaint of a bad check, it's a violation of penal law. If somebody writes a check and they know that there's no funds in that account and they let that check go, it's a crime. There's a lot of legwork associated with proving that crime. And it used to be that we would take the initial complaint, we would refer those victims to the district attorney's office, and the DA would do an investigation to determine or seek for reimbursement for the victim. The DA's office notified us they're not going to do that anymore. So it's just enough. I think there's another one of those things that just falls right back into our lap, which is fine. We can handle it. We did it for years before their program. But just in case anybody has any complaints about not getting quick or rapid service from a bad check complaint. Luckily, we don't have a lot of those, but they do happen. Civil service changes, that's sort of another thing that we're going to be working on, is maybe trying to get some recommendations for some changes in civil service. As you know, civil service is, I can't hire anybody unless they're, either a transfer candidate or somebody from civil service. Problem with that is they come out with a new legislation called the Professional Policing Act, PPA. And the Professional Policing Act now is a law under executive order that says that police departments in all of New York State now have to do mandatory background checks, psychological evaluations at a minimum. And we've always done that because we're accredited, so that's required. I would never hire anybody that didn't go through those steps, but some agencies, believe it or not, they don't do that, And so this Professional Policing Act now mandates that. The problem with that, though, is there's some automatic disqualifiers. They would always be automatic disqualifiers for Manlius PD, and that is felony conviction in somebody's past, drug use within X amount of time, not marijuana, but other illicit drug use within X amount of time. Those are things which consider automatic disqualifiers because they question the moral integrity of the individual. Under the new Professional Policing Act, that would be an automatic disqualification. Problem with that is we may disqualify them automatically from the process, but their names aren't removed from the civil service list. And as you may or may not know, removing people from the civil service list has always been problematic because they have this thing called the top 3 rule where you can't just jump people on the list. You got to go at the top of the list and work your way down. So we're trying to work with state civil service to maybe make some changes, positive changes.
I know they're trying to change that top 3 rule. There's a big push on that.
It's been discussed. I haven't heard of anybody making any leeway on it. There's so many issues with civil service. And another issue is that civil service is state, it's state law essentially, but it's guided at the county level through like a commissioner's position. And it's on our estimation that almost all 62 counties in New York State, they're all operating differently. So we kind of want to bring some
Cohesiveness.
Yeah, right. Some just so we're all kind of operating off of the same rules. And it's not just Manlius that's having an issue with it. It's every agency in Hennepin County and actually throughout the state. So if you didn't hear, we had a complaint in the village of Manlius, I don't know, about 3-4 weeks ago, right? Emotionally disturbed person with a knife. And I only mention it because it was the first time that we utilized some of our new approaches to person in crisis that's armed like that. Nobody got hurt, which was great. Well, no police officers got hurt, no civilians got hurt. But it was actually a really good, it really panned out great. Essentially, it was a guy that was in crisis and he had a knife in his hand. He was threatening to stab everybody. We ended up rolling in what we call our crisis intervention team, CIT trained officers, and they began to have dialogue with the individual, which is good. He was contained, so he couldn't hurt anybody. And then we went to the next level, which is sort of new for us. We engaged in our contract with Liberty Resources. They're a group that they have field counselors. They'll come out and try to talk people down, if you will, and that worked out really, really good. The problem is that this guy was just so disturbed, I guess. There's really no talking to him. So we ended up using, we call less lethal on him, which is like an impact munition. And thank goodness he dropped the knife, and then we were able to sort of tackle him and bring him into custody. And I only mention that because it was kind of a big deal for us, and actually there's a couple chiefs that were calling me for the video, so they could use it as a training opportunity and really essentially how to do it right. Really, we got lucky, to be honest with you. I mean, the guy with a knife anybody with a knife can do a lot of damage. So if you didn't know about that incident, I just figured that, I don't know if I mentioned that before or not. But,
No, I don't think we did.
unfortunately, we're dealing with a lot of people in crisis. Not to that extreme, but our CIT team is really, really working out well. They just got their hands full.
I heard several comments, very favorable comments on the way that was, because it wasn't a public place. Chief.
Yeah,
you
our
know,
people did amazing.
Yeah.
They
should be commended.
We had, luckily it happened during the day, so I had additional resources. There was 9 Manlius police officers, 2 DeWitt police officers, and 2 deputies from the sheriff's department. So we had really good staffing that day. So plus with all the equipment we carry, like, the less lethal munitions, we have bunkers on scene. So we're able to use the bunkers to protect the officers from getting stabbed. It just worked out great. So shoplifters, we've been having a lot of problems at mainly like at town center with shoplifters, and that's happening all throughout the country, right? And it's not to the extent that you're seeing it like on the media. But one of the things that is a little concerning is some of the stores are refusing to prosecute. So they're either never calling the police, or when they are calling the police, they're not really supportive as far as victims would be. That puts us in a really, really bad situation because the person committed a crime, but the store is not willing to prosecute, and that makes it almost impossible to bring a case to the district attorney's office for prosecution.
But why aren't they?
Their company policy is not to call the police. If they don't call the police, then we don't go, and it's not an issue. But the problem is when they do call the police and we go and they say, we want you to do something, but we're not going to support your position on this. It's not just Manlius, it's happening all over this county, I know, and possibly the state. So we're doing what we're doing. I mean, some chiefs, not myself included, but they're actually even considering not responding at all. I think that is not the right thing to do. I don't want somebody to possibly be in danger and then us not be there to try to, provide safety. So it hasn't become such a problem here in Manlius where I'm really, really concerned about it. But at the same time, it's pretty tough to engage with somebody like that when you really.
I remember at Stickley, though, when I was involved with some incidents, that the police department, that was Fran Barlow at the time, they would come in and give some in-service programs to the retailers. That was extremely helpful. I don't know if that's something.
Yeah, we still offer those. Yeah, we still offer those services, but the problem is the loss prevention people and or the employees at these establishments, even if we gave them training, they're instructed by their corporate not to call, or if they do call, not to press charges. That's a little difficult for us because we're getting dispatched sometimes to a larceny in progress or maybe a robbery in progress. We're getting there and sometimes we're going hands-on with people only to learn that the store doesn't want anything to do beyond that. It just puts the police in a really, really bad situation.
Is this organized? Are you seeing it organized?
No, not-
So this is just a run of the mill, somebody's sticking something in their coat and leaving with it.
Yeah, but the word is out on the street that
There's nothing.
there's nothing that can be done, you know. I literally heard a story recently where somebody put a color television over their shoulder, walked out of one of our stores. And when the loss prevention person says, whoa, 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 where are you going? You didn't pay for that. They literally looked at the person and said, we don't pay. And they just walked out. And some people call the police, some people don't. I'd almost prefer they didn't call the police because then we're not involved in it. But when they do call us and we become aware of it, there's not a lot we could do. It's a violation of state law, but without a victim.
I do know those programs work tremendously
Yeah.
when I was involved with that, so.
We got a new records management system. I guess you could call it a records management system. So before we had whenever we write a report, we write a lot of reports. It went into this system called Leads. And Leads was a countywide police reporting system. And it was nice because I could sit down at any computer and pull up any report from any other agency in all of Onondaga County. And it was great because you can share information, you know, learn about things that are happening in other areas of the county, et cetera. That system is essentially dead and there's no further support for it. So county IT created a new system called C2. And we're going to be transitioning to that. I only mention it because there was 2 agencies that were picked in Onondaga County to do testing on that new system, the Syracuse Police Department and Manlius PD. So our people have been testing that system for the last, I don't know, month or so. And our people are just doing a great job. But I mean, the county IT could have picked any agency in the county, but they picked us. So I thought that was kind of neat, you know,
Yeah.
because
Good for you.
so we're providing as much input as we can to this new county system. Hopefully will be rolled
That's
out and be
fabulous.
successful. Yeah.
Good for you, Chief.
All of our field training officers are doing really, really well. We have, I think I mentioned before, right now we have 3 in field training. 2 came out of Boone County Academy, 1 came out of Oswego County Academy. I have 1 body right now in the Onondaga Academy because the sheriff gave me a seat, which was great. But all those people are doing really good. They should be, you know, field training is a 12-week program at minimum. So they're still not going to be available to us essentially for some time, but they're all doing really well. As is the 1 individual we have in the Onondaga Academy.
Great.
And last thing I have on the list, I know that's kind of a long report, I apologize, but and I sort of really don't even like talking about it, but Captain Kevin Schaefer has announced his retirement. Yeah. Kevin has been an incredible member of the organization. I'm not sure how I'm going to do it without him. So
Outstanding. Yeah, he's done a tremendous
Yeah.
job with the
he's very
Racial
happy.
Response Committee
Yeah.
and his programs and.
Yeah, he's done amazing.
Yeah, we're gonna
Huge,
miss
huge
him.
loss to the organization. But
When's he going?
well, his last working day is tomorrow, but he'll be on the books until January 21. And that's when I plan to have a little ceremony for him on January 21st at the police department. So he's very excited. He's very happy. He got a great job with a private company locally. And I know he's going to do great things for them, just like he did for us. So there could be some movement at the police department. Obviously, I'm going to be moving the operations commander over to the admin side, and then the operations lieutenant's going to have to move up and do that job for a while until I figure out my next move.
We thank him for his service, Chief. He's been a pleasure, like yourself, to work with, and wish him all the best.
Yeah. And that's all I have. And other than thank you so much for your support. This committee has been amazing for the police department. You know, I get to meet, you know, on a regular basis and hear about concerns or issues or whatever the case may be. And Karen, you've done an incredible job. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Chief.
It's always been a pleasure. It's one of those meetings I don't mind coming to, right?
I love to hear.
Except for when it comes to beat the chief, which is on the end of the agenda there.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
Still having rash of car break-ins.
Yeah, that's continuous.
Primarily unlocked vehicles.
Almost always unlocked, unless somebody leaves something really valuable inside the car that's locked, and then they smash the glass. But we've had a lot of people have cameras now, which is great. Cameras don't tell you too much, but every once in a while we'll get a vehicle description, maybe a description of an individual. But and it's hit or miss, so it's really, really difficult to be. I mean, our people are actively patrolling these neighborhoods, but you know, when they come get dropped off or they go on foot. That's in the summer, it'll be a little bit better only because sometimes we put the bicycles out in the summer and you can't hear the police coming when they're on a bicycle. But you can hear them coming when they're in a car.
Oh, gee, that's another plus for the electric vehicle.
That's right. Yeah, they don't make a lot of noise. That's a good point. Yeah, that unfortunately, and it's not just us, it's all throughout.
Is
the
it
county.
a group of people that just target a neighborhood and run through the neighborhood and then move on?
Yes, yeah. Our CSU unit did an outstanding job recently where we actually caught somebody. And then we got a search warrant for their phone and we did a phone poll and we discovered all kinds of crimes that they videotaped, which was awesome. Luckily, we have that technology to be able to do a phone poll with a warrant, and it's just invaluable. Hopefully, those people aren't listening. Strike that.
All right, Bobby, did you have anything from?
Two things really quick. Karen, thank you for your service that you've given this town for the last
Thank you.
how many years? In the short time I've been on this committee, it's been an honor working with you,
Thank you so much.
and enjoy retirement.
I'm not
and-
retiring. Bobby.
Well, from your
Thank you,
part-time
though.
job though.
Thank you. Yeah.
And then the second thing is we actually had a child at our village that did the shop with the cop, and
Oh,
it worked out great. And the smile on his face was ear to ear. He loved it. So,
Oh, great.
That's wonderful.
yeah, that's a really, really good program.
Yeah.
And that's all our union is that our union is everything, they do all that. So
Good. Mr. McGrew,
Again, thank you. We're gonna miss you.
thank you.
Still getting the normal complaints on speeding through the village. It's gonna be an ongoing
Fayette Street, mainland.
ongoing issue. We had our first annual Christmas parade, which actually turned out real well, and a lot of people had a great time. Gonna tweak the timing and times on it a little bit for next year, but it looks like it's something that we're gonna do again next year.
Is that Christmas lights parade? Is that?
Yeah,
the
whatever,
the short one that went, yeah.
Yeah, one from Stickley over
Yes.
to just everybody enjoyed it, had a great time.
Good.
That's all I got.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott. Elaine, do you have anything from the?
So I do also want to thank you, Karen, for your service
Thank you.
to the town. And then the only update I have is we're working on our organizational meeting coming up in January, and so far it looks like Council Waters and I believe Councilor-elect Nicholson will be joining this committee for next year.
Okay.
And I'll be, of course, following along, and I'm always here if anyone needs anything, but I'll be focusing my time on some other areas, including updating the town's website.
Good.
Going
Mr.
along with
Kinsella.
thefts, how about package thefts?
A little bit. I think people are becoming a little wiser to that as well, having packages delivered elsewhere. But yeah, we've had some of that. Porch pirates, we call
Yeah, is there any way, what do you do? Have to hope that somebody had a camera or something?
them. Even camera's great, but if it doesn't identify the person, everybody's wearing a mask, especially a criminal that's going to be stealing off your front porch. But cameras are great, but that's been so prevalent. I've heard people having packages delivered to their workplace, packages being delivered to You know, there's not a lot in this area, but in other areas of the country, they actually have like delivery zones where they have like a locker, and Amazon or whomever would deliver it to the locker. And then at the end of the day, you go to the locker, put in a combination, and you can get a package that way. That's being done. You
How
know,
about to the police department? They deliver them?
no, I mean, we have
Okay, well, I don't know.
yeah, we have an exchange zone.
Yeah.
But we don't have lockers.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have, because I would have one for UPS and FedEx and
Okay.
Amazon and all of them, you know, that would be, because that would be presumably a safe place to have your package delivered, you know. So that's definitely something that's on the list of, you know, wish list, if you will.
Okay.
But a lot of neighbors are really stepping up and helping one another. I mean, even out in my neighborhood, my neighbor had a package stolen, and it wasn't a huge loss, but it was, you know, it was just a pain. He was reimbursed, and he had to order the package again. And I told him, I said, if I'm home for lunch or something, call me, I'll grab it for you. And I did, you know, because he sent me a text and said, can you grab that thing off my front? Because, you know, it's just him and his wife. And so I think neighbors are helping out a lot too.
Yeah. I agree.
Okay, well, on the news this morning, there was a lot about a scam at the Manlius Police Department. And this,
We're always putting a lot of information on our Facebook account about all kinds of scams.
yeah, they said police officers were calling on the news. Police
Oh,
officers. It said the town of Manlius.
Yeah,
really? I
They
didn't
were
hear about
saying-
that. I didn't hear about that one. so.
They were saying they were from the town of Manlius?
Yes,
Mhm,
yes, they were
yes.
saying they were from the town of Manlius, and so the police department put it on like next door and Facebook,
okay.
and they really
Oh, I didn't
blasted
see
it
that.
out there to let everyone know
That we don't do that.
that we do not do that.
We
yeah.
solicit
So they were
by mail.
very clear about, you know, when they would call and what they would say, it would not be that. So.
The PBA still solicits, but almost always it's
Oh, yeah.
by mail.
This was something else.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
Somebody was arrested and they had to get money to them before they were going to get it.
Yeah.
Ransom, the ransom.
we've seen that. Actually, the Attorney General of the state of New York asked all the agencies in New York State to produce reports of that particular scam where people pose as a grandchild and say, hey, I just got in an accident, I'm hurt, I need money right away, or I got arrested and you need to bail me out, send the money to Puerto Rico or something.
Okay, the other thing is, I know Manlius has worked on it. I guess the town's working on pot and cannabis or whatever it is.
It's gonna be discussed tonight,
It-
yeah.
There's no way that you can detect that except by smell, right? There's no test.
And what,
If somebody's driving,
it depends on the type. If it's the green leafy stuff that they're smoking, it's easily detected
okay,
through smell.
Yeah.
But they removed our ability to search a car based on smell.
I read that. I
Yeah.
read all those laws.
Right.
So you can't, the only thing you can do is see if something's visible.
Visible based on what we call plain view, which is an exception to the warrant, or we could launch an investigation if we have enough information to believe that the driver is operating that motor vehicle while they're under the influence of cannabis. Because you still can't drive a car while you're under the influence of cannabis.
But there's no test.
There's a blood test to determine the amount that's in your blood, but it's somewhat inconclusive only because the test can't determine, like right now for alcohol, there's a level, you know, and in New York, if you're above the legal level, it's a certain charge. If you're below, it's a charge. If there's none, then there's none. It isn't like that for marijuana, and marijuana lingers in your system for days and days. So it's difficult through the one test that we have to determine what level they were at, if you will, of intoxication by cannabis. We're still arresting on it, but we have to build a pretty strong case in order to help the district attorney prosecute on that. So it would include the level in the blood, but it also include field sobriety testing and things like that we do roadside. But most importantly, and we have two of them, which I'm real proud of, but we're one of the only agencies that trained in what we call drug recognition experts. They call them DREs. And they go through a whole long training in addition to the alcohol training that almost every one of us gets to determine the level of intoxication by cannabis while operating a motor vehicle. That's a whole mess. But you're right, there is no.
No, I don't want to be right. I want the people in the village that I represent to know that you have maybe you have ways of, detecting this.
Yeah, unlike alcohol, where there's a roadside test, we call it a PBT or a portable breath test, PBT. There is nothing like that for marijuana.
Okay,
Now, they do have some pretty early on technology where people could blow through a tube and it might be able to determine some level of cannabis in their system. But those machines are extremely expensive and they still don't have sort of like court support.
Okay.
I mean, the PBT doesn't either, but we're getting there, but it's slowly evolving. They made it legal way earlier than the police were able to react to it.
Okay, one quick follow-up to that. So if you, let's say you want to hire a new police officer, and that police officer has on his record of a marijuana issue, all those have been thrown out, right?
Yes, depending on the charge.
Okay,
There's multiple level charges for
wondered.
marijuana.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah, yeah, and as long as they didn't show up to the interview stoned, we probably wouldn't use that against them in a selection process.
Okay, but I mean, because I guess
Actually, the law says you can't use that as something against somebody for employment sake.
when the law went through, it said no more, this was a minor offense, so everything's erased. Right?
Yeah, they started doing that even before the law changed.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we don't hold that exclusively against somebody. And even in that Professional Policing Act, that would not in itself be considered a violation towards good moral conduct. Because it's legal.
And,
Anything else, Dan?
it's been a pleasure working with you on this committee and especially on the Deer Committee.
Thank you, Dan.
And the sidekick behind you on the
Yeah.
Deer Committee and
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
and I know she's staying and you're leaving,
Yes.
but
Thank you.
I hope that, we work something out there somehow,
Thank you.
because I'm not doing a good job.
We've got you covered. Dan.
Yeah, we do.
We've got you covered. And that's the other thing I just wanted to mention, that Dan and I have been working on the deer management program again, and there will be action starting after the first of the year, because the hunting season was extended. They aren't starting quite as early this year. So, but just so you're aware, and they should be contacting you to let you know.
Yeah, they've always been really good at
Yeah.
that. So,
Good. And other than
He's
that,
good about letting me know.
oh, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, they call all the time.
good. Other than that, again, thank you all very much, and I wish you a very Merry Christmas and a peaceful New Year. Thank
you.
you. And if I could have a motion to adjourn,
Make a motion.
thank you. In a second,
Second.
all in favor?
Oh, hmm?
Good night. Good night. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh,